Please, don't take her from me. Maya screamed, her hands trembling as the baby's cries pierced the penthouse air. I swear, Mr. Henry, I didn't let her starve. William stood frozen, shocked, horrified, staring at the impossible thing unfolding in front of him, and in Maya's shaking arms. Nancy finally stopped crying. No one understood how. No one understood why. And in that moment, none of them were ready for the truth. Hudson Yards glittered like a kingdom made of glass. But inside the penthouse at the very top, a sound kept breaking the silence. A thin, desperate cry that no longer sounded like it came from a living child. Nancy Henry was only 8 months old, but she looked smaller every morning. Her ribs showed. Her eyes drifted. Her skin faded into the color of cold marble. And the most terrifying part? No one knew why. Williams Henry, the millionaire every magazine loved, had built empires from nothing, but he couldn't save his only daughter. Not even the specialist from Mount Sinai could explain the weight loss. Not even the expensive formulas imported from Germany made her eat. His wife, Nancy's mother, was gone. His sleep was gone. His hope was going next. The nanny had quit. The night nurse resigned. The baby kept fading. And then Maya Gorge walked into this world. Invisible, quiet, a cleaning lady with a battered Metro card and a heart that carried more grief than most people would survive. She scrubbed the floors nobody saw. She folded the clothes nobody appreciated. And while everyone looked at charts, monitors, and medical reports, Maya looked at the baby, and she noticed the things they didn't. The way Nancy turned her face away from every bottle, the untouched formula, the trembling arms reaching out for help no one could translate. Something was wrong in this penthouse, something the wealthy and powerful didn't see, didn't feel, didn't hear. But Maya did, and the truth she would uncover would not only save the child, it would threaten everything around her. Before we go deeper, tell me something. Where are you watching from right now? It always humbles me to see how far stories like this reach. If this moment is already pulling at you, don't hesitate to stay with us, because what comes next will shake you. Now come with me, back to the morning it all began. Back to the moment Maya Gorge stepped into the Henry penthouse for the very first time, unaware that a dying child was waiting for her. The elevator door slid open with a soft chime, revealing a hallway of glass and silence. Maya stepped out slowly, clutching the strap of her cleaning bag, her breath catching at the sight of a home so perfect it felt like a photograph. But perfection, she would soon learn, was only the wallpaper over something breaking. She was barely halfway across the living room when she heard it, that cry, thin, dry, tired, a sound that didn't ask for help anymore. It begged. A nurse rushed past her, formula bottle in hand, muttering, "She won't take it. She won't take anything." Another doctor followed behind, exhausted and irritated. They barely noticed Maya. Workers like her were always invisible in houses like this. But she noticed them. She noticed everything. For the next few days, Maya moved silently through the penthouse, mopping floors, wiping counters, dusting shelves lined with photographs of a happier family. And every day, she saw the same pattern. They fed Nancy. Nancy cried harder, then grew weaker. One morning, as she emptied the trash near the service exit, a voice whispered behind her, "Did she tell you yet?" Maya turned. The old nanny, the one who'd been abruptly dismissed, stood there holding a cardboard box of her belongings. Her eyes were red, terrified. "Tell me what?" Maya asked, but the woman only shook her head. "Be careful in there," she whispered. "Something strange happened before I left. Something I don't want to talk about." Then she hurried away, refusing to meet Maya's eyes again. Strange. That word stayed with Maya longer than it should have. That afternoon, Maya stepped into the nursery to take out laundry and froze. Nancy was staring at her, not at the ceiling, not at a bottle, at her. Her tiny chest heaved. A soft whimper slipped out. Maya, unsure why, whispered gently, "It's okay, sweetheart." And for the first time in weeks, according to the chart pinned near the crib, Nancy calmed, just from her voice. Maya's heart clenched, not in fear, in bitterness, because she knew this feeling too well. In America, the invisible women, the cleaners, the night shift workers, the ones who held strangers' babies without ever being thanked, were always the first to sense danger, and the last to be believed. She leaned over the crib, humming an old lullaby her mother used to sing, and Nancy's trembling eased even more, her breath slowing. Before we continue, let me ask you something. Why is it that the people who see the truth first, the quiet workers, the unnoticed women, are always the ones the world ignores? If stories like this matter to you, don't just watch in silence. Stay with us, because Maya is about to uncover something no one else dared to see. Maya touched Nancy's hand gently. "I see you," she whispered, and deep inside the Henry penthouse, the truth began to stir. The next morning, sunlight spilled to floor-to-ceiling windows, warm and soft, but the nursery felt cold. Maya moved quietly through the room, picking up toys, folding blankets, trying not to disturb Nancy, who was finally asleep after a long night of restless crying. As she reached behind the crib to grab a fallen pacifier, her hand brushed against something stiff. A can. She pulled it out slowly. A full, unopened container of formula, hidden behind the crib. Maya frowned. It wasn't on the feeding schedule. It wasn't logged. It wasn't even the brand the doctors recommended. But what struck her hardest wasn't the brand. It was the dust around the lid. This hadn't been touched in weeks. Her stomach dropped. Why wasn't anyone noticing this? Why wasn't anyone asking why Nancy wasn't eating anything? Later that afternoon, she found Williams Henry in his office. Shoulders slumped, tie loosened, grief etched into every line of his face. Papers were scattered across his desk, but he wasn't working. He was staring at a picture of his late wife holding baby Nancy, back when she had chubby cheeks and bright eyes. "Maya," William said softly, noticing her. Do you think she'll get better?" Maya hesitated. She wasn't allowed to offer medical opinions. She wasn't sure what she was allowed to say at all. But Williams wasn't asking as a millionaire. He was asking as a father. She stepped closer, gently placing the hidden formula on his desk. "I found this behind the crib," she said carefully. "It hasn't been used." William stared at the can, confused. "That's the brand Nancy liked when my wife was still alive." His voice cracked. "Before she passed, she told me one thing. She said, 'Protect Nancy. She's sensitive.' I thought she meant emotionally. I thought she meant grief." He rubbed his forehead. "I'm starting to think I don't understand my own child." Maya swallowed hard. "Babies communicate in different ways," she said. "Sometimes it's what they refuse that tells you the truth." And Nancy was refusing everything. Over the next days, Maya watched closely. Each feeding attempt was a small disaster. The nurse would lift Nancy, tilt the bottle, and Nancy would twist away violently like she was afraid, like the bottle itself was a threat. The crying that followed wasn't normal hunger crying. It was shaking, gasping, terrified crying. Something inside Maya tightened each time. An instinct, a warning. So she did what no one else in that penthouse had thought to do. She documented everything. In a small spiral notebook she kept hidden in her cleaning bag, she wrote, "Formula untouched, 4 days straight. Baby turned head away each time. Crying increases when bottle appears. Old Nanny seemed afraid. Something is wrong. Something is being missed." Line after line, she built a timeline of a child who wasn't just sick. She was starving. One evening, during yet another feeding attempt, the nurse tried to push the bottle gently toward Nancy's lips. Nancy screamed. Not just cried. Screamed, as if her little body couldn't bear it anymore. Her face turned red, then purple, her fists shaking. And for the first time, Maya felt true panic crawl up her spine. This wasn't normal. This wasn't medical. This was a warning. One Maya could no longer ignore. The cafe on 34th Street was small, tucked between a laundromat and a flower shop. The morning rush had passed, leaving only the hum of an espresso machine and the soft clatter of dishes. Maya chose a corner booth where no one would overhear them. Her palms were damp. Her heart was louder than the traffic outside. 5 minutes later, the previous nanny slipped in, A thin woman with tired eyes and a scarf pulled tightly around her neck. She scanned the cafe nervously before sliding into the seat across from Maya. "You said you wanted to know the truth," the nanny whispered, her voice trembling. I'm not supposed to talk about it." Maya nodded gently. "I'm not here to get anyone in trouble. I just want to understand what's happening to Nancy." At the baby's name, the nanny's face crumpled. She folded her hands, knuckles whitening. "It wasn't always like this," she began. "Before Mrs. Henry passed, things changed. She wasn't herself. The doctors called it postpartum depression, maybe anxiety. Sometimes she'd cry for hours. Sometimes she'd stare at the wall like she was trapped in her own head." Maya listened, leaning forward. "One night," the nanny continued, "I heard Nancy screaming. Not normal baby crying. Something worse. I ran into the nursery. Mrs. Henry was trying to feed her, but she wasn't holding the bottle right. Nancy was choking, turning blue. Her voice cracked. I grabbed the baby, patted her back, cleared her throat. She was safe. But Mrs. Henry, she broke. She kept saying, I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to." Maya felt the room tilt. After that, the nanny whispered, Nancy wouldn't take a bottle from her or from me. She'd scream every time she saw one. She'd thrash like she was fighting for her life. I tried to tell Mr. Henry, but he was grieving, overwhelmed. He thought Nancy was reacting to her mother's sadness. Then the doctor stepped in, and everyone started talking about medical causes. Weight loss, malabsorption, allergies. She shook her head. No one ever considered trauma. The word hung between them. Trauma. The nanny wiped her eyes. I quit because I couldn't watch her suffer anymore. And because I felt responsible for not stopping things sooner. Maya exhaled a slow, heavy breath. Suddenly everything made sense. The way Nancy recoiled at the sight of the bottle, the shaking cries, the starvation, the fear. Nancy wasn't dying from an illness. She was drowning in a memory. Psychological starvation, the cruelest kind. Maya, the nanny said, touching her hand, that baby isn't sick. She's terrified. She needs someone who sees her, someone who understands. Maya stood from the booth with a new purpose burning in her chest. She didn't have medical degrees or fancy titles, but she saw Nancy, and now she understood her. As she stepped back onto 34th Street, weaving through the crowds and the roar of buses, one thought pulsed with every step. She was going back to that penthouse to test a theory, one that might be the difference between life and loss. Nancy's screams tore through the penthouse like something breaking. High, desperate, breathless. The kind of cry that made Maya's bones vibrate. Upstairs, Williams paced the hallway. Phone pressed hard his ear. "No, she's getting worse," he shouted at the pediatrician. "You keep saying monitor her, but she's fading. She's fading right in front of me." His voice cracked. Nancy's cries rose again. No answers came from the phone. Maya rushed into the nursery. The baby was curled in her crib, tiny fist trembling, face red and drenched in tears. Every breath came out as a sob. Maya scooped her up instinctively. It's okay, sweetheart," she whispered, though she knew it wasn't. Nancy's body shook in her arms. Not from illness, from terror. Maya sat in the rocking chair, holding her close. The scent of baby powder, tears, and fear wrapped around them. Nancy clawed weakly at Maya's shirt, her face burrowing toward her chest, whimpering in a way that made the truth land like a blow. She wasn't reaching for food. She was reaching for comfort. Human comfort. Maya froze. She felt the small, frantic pushes of Nancy's hands. Pleading, instinctive, primal. A sound escaped the baby's throat, half cry, half sob, and Maya's heart cracked open. She was a mother once too. She knew that sound, and she knew, without needing any medical degree, what Nancy was begging for. For a moment, Maya hesitated. The rules, the boundaries, the judgment she might face, all of it flickered through her mind in a single breath. But Nancy was slipping, and in that moment, nothing mattered except saving her. Maya positioned the baby gently, protectively, bringing her close. Her body tensed and softened as instinct took over. With a deep, steadying breath, she offered what Nancy's terrified little body had been begging for: warmth, life, nourishment, her milk. Nancy latched immediately, like she'd been waiting her entire existence for this exact moment. The shaking stopped. The crying softened. Within seconds, the tension that held her tiny body hostage melted away. She was feeding, for the first time without fear. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. Relief, raw and trembling, washed over her. Then the nursery door creaked. William stepped inside. He froze. His phone slipped from his hand and hit the floor with a dull thud. His breath caught in his throat as he took in the sight. His daughter, silent, finally calm, feeding in Maya's arms, safe at last. His eyes filled with something too complex to name: shock, grief, wonder, gratitude, guilt. He didn't speak. He couldn't, for a long, fragile moment. The only sound was Nancy's quiet, steady breathing. And now, to the reader, here, gently, woven into the moment, if your heart stopped for a second reading that, imagine being in that room. Imagine seeing a child starving not because she's sick, but because she's scared. Stories like this remind us why we stay, why we listen, why we follow every chapter to the end. Don't drift away. Stay with this story the way Maya stayed with Nancy. The house was quiet in a way it hadn't been in months. Nancy slept peacefully against Maya's chest, her tiny breast warm and steady. The storm of screaming, panic, and desperation had finally calmed. William stood by the nursery door, hands trembling at his sides. His eyes were red, swollen, exhausted beyond measure. "Maya," his voice cracked. I owe you an apology." She looked up gently. "Mr. Henry." "No," he said, shaking his head. "You saw my daughter. You understood her. And his breath faltered. "I didn't see anything. I failed her." Maya shifted Nancy slightly, keeping her asleep. She spoke softly, carefully. "You didn't fail her. You were grieving, lost, and you trusted the people who were supposed to have answers." William sank onto the edge of the crib, elbows on his knees. "All this time I thought she was sick. I thought her body was shutting down." He swallowed hard, and it was fear. Maya hesitated, then told him everything. The cafe, the previous nanny, the night Mrs. Henry had accidentally choked baby Nancy during a feeding. She explained the panic, the trauma, the way a single terrifying moment had rewired the baby's mind. Williams listened with growing devastation. "My wife," he pressed his hands over his eyes. "She never told me. She must have been so ashamed, so frightened." His voice broke into a whisper. "I should have protected her. I should have protected both of them." Maya reached out, placing a steady hand on his arm. "You loved them. That's what matters. Trauma hides in silence. It's no one's fault, but now we know, and now we can help her heal." He lifted his head, eyes glistening. "How? How we fix this?" Maya breathed deeply. She had spent the last hours watching Nancy relax when held close, watching her cling to warmth more than anything else. "We go slowly," Maya said, "step by step, skin-to-skin comfort, gentle routines. We let her relearn safety before we ever try a bottle again." Williams nodded, absorbing every word. "Calm sounds, soft lighting," Maya continued. "We hold her while she rests. We show her she's not in danger. When she's ready, we introduce feeding again, but gradually. No pressure, no fear." "And you'll help me?" he asked, voice small. "Yes," Maya said without hesitation. "She trusts me, and she needs consistency." Williams looked at her then, not as an employer, not as a grieving man searching for answers, but as someone seeing the truth clearly for the first time. "You're not just a cleaning lady," he said quietly. "You're the only person who truly hears her." Maya felt warmth rise in her chest. Not pride, purpose. That evening, they began the new routine together. Williams held Nancy against his bare chest as she slept, her tiny hand curling into his skin. Maya guided him gently, reassuring him when doubt flickered in his eyes. Over the next days, Nancy reached for Maya first, relaxed in her arms, cried less, slept more. Slowly, her body began to trust again, and as Williams watched Maya soothe his daughter with a tenderness that filled the once cold penthouse, one truth settled deep in his heart. She wasn't just helping Nancy heal. She was becoming family. Word traveled through the penthouse staff faster than the Manhattan winds. Whispers slipped down hallways, across kitchen tiles, through the elevator shafts. She saved the baby. Maya, did you hear? She fed her. No doctor could figure out, but she did. Wait, did she cross a line? Are they going to fire her or promote her? Some voices were reverent, others judgmental. All of them were loud. But Maya kept her head down, heart focused on the tiny girl, who now clung to her like safety itself. Nancy was calmer these days, resting more, crying less. For the first time, her cheeks had a faint flush of color. Hope returning, cell by cell. Still, peace never lasts long in a house watched by too many eyes. William stepped into his office that Monday morning to find 3 missed calls and a flood of emails, each colder than the last. His business partners weren't calling to congratulate him. They were calling to condemn him. Neglect, one message read. How did you let your child deteriorate like this? Another demanded. Investor confidence is shaken. Henry, handle your home before it ruins everything. The words cut him deeper than any boardroom attack ever had. And then child services arrived. Not in anger, not with accusations against Maya, but with concern over how an entire medical team had missed psychological trauma in an infant. Maya met with the investigator in the library, hands folded tightly in her lap. The woman across from her wore a soft smile, but sharp eyes. Ms. Gord, she said, we're trying to understand what happened here. Tell us, in your own words, what you witnessed. Maya didn't tremble. She didn't deflect. She spoke with quiet strength. She told him about the starving cries, the untouched bottles, the way Nancy recoiled from feeding attempts. She explained how trauma hides behind symptoms, how fear can silence a child long before sickness does. And when they asked about Williams, she lifted her chin. He loves his daughter, Maya said. He was grieving and overwhelmed, yes, but he never abandoned her. He brought doctors, specialists, nurses. He sought help in every direction. He didn't fail her. The system failed to look deeper. The investigator nodded slowly, moved. When Maya left the room, Williams was waiting in the hallway. His eyes were wet, not from fear but gratitude. You defended me, he whispered. You didn't deserve blame, she replied. That same week, something miraculous happened. Nancy gained 2 ounces. Small, nearly invisible, but monumental. Williams lifted her in his arms and cried openly, kissing the top of her now warm head. She's healing, he breathed, and Maya knew he was right. Later that evening, after the house had settled into rare, blissful quiet, Williams found Maya in the nursery, folding tiny blankets. Maya, he said softly. She turned. He inhaled shakily. I don't want you to be just the cleaning staff anymore. You're the reason my daughter is alive. I need you here. With her. With us. He paused, voice trembling. Will you stay? Not as help, but as someone who will help raise Nancy. Winter melted into spring, and with it, the mansion began to breathe again. For the first time in months, laughter, tiny, bubbly, baby laughter, echoed to the marble halls. Nancy, now stronger, crawled across soft rugs with determination in her eyes. Her cheeks had filled out, her skin glowed with warmth, and her cries had softened into playful babbles that made the entire estate feel alive. Every morning, Maya lifted her from the crib, and Nancy would press her face into Maya's shoulder with a familiarity that melted the coldest corners of the penthouse. The nursery, once sterile and silent, was now filled with gentle music, pastel blankets, and the scent of lavender. Even the staff moved differently, lighter, softer, as if the house itself had unclenched its fists. Maya's presence became the quiet heartbeat of the home. She organized meals, shaped routines, soothed midnight tears, and filled empty spaces with warmth no luxury designer could create. The workers who once ignored her now sought her advice. Williams's business partners whispered apologies. Even the doctors checked in, not with medical suspicion, but with awe. And Williams, he watched, not in the distant, grieving way he once had, but with gratitude and something deeper, admiration. He saw her strength in the way she carried Nancy on her hip while handling chaos with calm. He saw her humility in the way she credited others for healing she had sparked with her own 2 hands. He saw her compassion in every soft word she whispered to a frightened child. She wasn't just raising Nancy. She was rebuilding a family. One quiet evening, as the sun dipped behind the Hudson River, turning the sky molten gold, Williams approached Maya in the living room. Nancy was asleep against her chest, fingers curled in Maya's shirt. "I need to tell you something," he said gently. Maya looked up, curious but calm. "This isn't the first time I saw you," Williams continued. "Before my wife passed, we were at Mount Sinai. She was recovering, and one afternoon she saw you cleaning the hallway outside her room." Maya blinked, surprised. Williams smiled faintly, eyes soft with memory. "She watched you help an elderly patient pick up their dropped papers. You didn't know anyone was looking, but she did." He swallowed, emotion tightening his voice. "Later that day, she told me, 'That woman has a good spirit. Hire her someday.'" Maya's breath caught. "She said it with conviction," Williams whispered, "as if she knew you were meant for us." Maya didn't speak at first. The realization washed over her slowly, filling every hidden corner of her heart. She thought of Nancy's first smile, her first steady breath, the night she saved her life, not by chance, but by calling. Man, she looked down at the sleeping child in her arms, and her chest ached with something profound and undeniable. Nancy had not been saved by luck. She had been guided, straight into Maya's arms. And in that moment, Maya understood. She had always been meant to be here. Nancy's laughter, light bubbling, impossibly sweet, floated to the halls that were once so painfully silent. The mansion had been a mausoleum after her mother's death, a place where footsteps echoed too loudly and grief settled in every corner. But now, sunlight reached farther, rooms felt warmer. Even the staff walked with lighter shoulders. Nancy, once fragile and fading, now clapped her hands as she toddled after Maya down the marble corridor. Her cheeks were full, her eyes bright, her little legs strong enough to carry her from one end of the living room to the other. Each wobbling step felt like a victory. And Williams, he was different too. He stood in the doorway, watching his daughter chase the ribbon Maya spun playfully in the air. His expression, soft, humbled, held a gratitude he couldn't begin to articulate. There were days he thought he'd failed beyond repair. Days he believed the house, the company, the responsibilities, all of it, had swallowed him so deeply he'd never climb out. But Maya had pulled everyone back to the surface, not loudly, not dramatically, just by being who she was, by giving love where it was needed most, by seeing what everyone else overlooked. She had become part of the Henry family long before anyone said the words aloud. "Careful, sweetheart," Maya called, swooping down to scoop Nancy before she toppled. Nancy giggled against her shoulder, tiny fingers clutching Maya's blouse as though it were a lifeline. William smiled. "She trusts you more than anyone." Maya looked up, modest as always. She just needed time and someone to listen. He stepped closer, lowering his voice the way fathers do when a moment feels sacred. "We all did, Maya." Her cheeks warmed, but she held his gaze. This home, this child, this man, they had become something she hadn't expected. A second chance. A purpose she never imagined she'd have. The family that once crumbled was slowly rebuilding itself, brick by quiet brick. A child who once starved was now surrounded by love. A man who once lost everything had hope again. And a woman society overlooked became the hero no one expected. Nancy nestled deeper into Maya's arms, eyelids fluttering as the afternoon sun painted her face gold. Williams watched them, this scene, this peace, and felt a truth settle in his chest. He couldn't imagine their lives without her. And maybe they weren't meant to. As we close this chapter, think about how many Maya Gorges walk quietly through our world. unnoticed, uncelebrated, yet holding families together in ways most will never fully understand. If this story touched you, stay connected. Stay present. Don't let this be the last moment we share. The final image lingers like a blessing. Maya carrying Nancy across the sunlit penthouse, the skyline glowing behind them. A life saved, a family reborn, a home at last rebuilt.